Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity.
You are tuning in to a Goldilocks Productions presentation of the Quantum Path Radio Show with Dennis Anderson. Dennis is a psychic medium, a hypnotist, and spiritual teacher. He has had a gift to perceive the subtle energies from an early age, turning off the gift at the age of 20 to live life, love, and understand human behavior. To have it reawaken again during his late 30s due to a calling that was loud and needed to be answered, Dennis was urged by Spirit to learn more, grow more, and share his gifts that others can benefit by exploring their own unique abilities. Call in now if you would like to speak to Dennis. The call-in number is 713-955-0594. Press 1 so that you can get into the host queue.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Quantum Path Radio Show. As stated, my name is Dennis Anderson, and I am very eager and pleased to be with you again today on this October 23rd, 2017, and holy smokes, has this month and year flown by. It's just been incredible, like how fast it has gone. Like, it just seems like the other day that we just started the show, and it's already been since July, like a few months now. So it's amazing, all the things that have been going on this year. There's lots of changes, lots of wonderful things that are going on. It's just been incredible. Let's put it that way. And just this past weekend, actually, I did what was called a San Pedro, I guess you could say. It's sort of like an ayahuasca experience, very similar but a little bit different. With San Pedro, actually, and let's put it this way: I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all next week. Hopefully, it's an experience and a half. Let me put it to you that way. And in some ways, like, I'm still, I guess you could say, integrating all the things that I felt and saw, and releasing some of the old things that I was hanging on to and holding on to for, well, let's put it this way, since I was pretty much like a baby, actually, really, when I think about it. So the thing is that, like I said, I'm looking forward to sharing with you next week in regards to my experiences with that. It was interesting. Let me put it to you that way. So anyway, tonight, actually, I have a new friend of mine, actually. His name is Hugh Traulsen. And let me put it to you this way. He called up a few weeks back, actually, and just to kind of share a few things with us on the show. And I just found him kind of interesting and fascinating. So I wanted to actually have him come back as a guest this time instead of an actual caller. So tonight, I will be taking a few of your phone calls. I won't be taking as many as I normally would, but I will take a few in between things, I guess you could say. Let's get started with Hugh. And Hugh, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Dennis. How are you? Thank you so much for bringing me on as a guest. And I would love if we can keep a theme of synchronicities going, because that's a whole big area that a lot of people have that really needs to be looked at more instead of dismissing things as a coincidence. And I have mentioned a couple of you. I can mention some too, but also related to myself, I thank you for the wonderful information you put on the show page. And rather than get into, because there's so much to cover, that website as people listen, they can go on to and look at documents and see different things so that they can formulate their own questions from just looking that information over. And I would like just one thing, if you can take a minute or two, to show one of your skills. I'd love for you to do that auric reading on the picture of me to tell me what you think that you see.
Well, let's put it this way, Hugh. I do see a lot of yellow in you, which is coming out of your solar plexus, actually. So that tells me that you're actually quite analytical and logical. You're quite the thinker. Let's put it that way. But there's a lovely, let's put it this way, shade of blue and magenta coming out of you as well, which is, let's put it this way, blue is actually related to your communication of who you are, like getting your true self out, okay, and that's the big thing there. And the I guess you could say that magenta / blue, I guess you could, or violet sort of color is actually your, let's put it this way, that's kind of like your connection with your higher self, okay? So there's a lot of thought in regards to your own connection, you know, and to your own aspect of who you are there. But there's a little bit of green kind of poking in there too, actually, which is actually kind of neat. And green is coming from your heart chakra, which is lovely, actually. And that one there is related to the healing and unconditional love that you actually do have as well. So you've got some really good colors going on with you there, Hugh.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. I don't know how you're able to evaluate so interestingly, but yeah, it sort of touches on so many of the areas that I've experienced, bizarre life things, and I've had everything from UFO, paranormal, and near-death with ongoing paranormal. But again, the synchronicities are so amazing. I keep pulling them up from my past and in the present, and just in awe of what I find. I'll just to whet people's appetite so that they may come on and touch on their own synchronicities if they have some. As our family used to vacation in Cuba years ago, and we were there actually the year Castro overthrew Batista in 1959. We got out on an emergency flight, which I believe was arranged through a gentleman my father introduced me to the following year in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And his name was Len L-E-N Povey, P-O-V-E-Y. There's not too much on the internet, but there's enough interesting information that I discovered many years later. At the time when my father introduced me to Mr. Povey, he was the president of Mackey Airlines, which used to fly out of Fort Lauderdale over to the Bahamas. Eventually, Eastern Airlines took it over, and then I just learned a couple of years ago that Len Povey was actually one of the first American barnstormers, and he trained the Cuban Air Force under Batista and is responsible for an air maneuver that's still done in air shows to this day called the Cuban 8. So I had no clue as to any of that. And another interesting synchronicity, too, was when I was on active duty in the Air Force, I was in survival and had gone through the training through the altitude chamber and was flight certified to wear the exposure suits and go up in a military jet. They used to train the ROTC on the T-33 fighter jets in the summertime. I was stationed on Cape Cod at Otis Air Force Base, and when they had extra fuel, they would give us a ride, and I got a ride, and the pilot did a nosedive on a yacht and then came back up and kicked in the afterburners, which makes a loud boom, and said, "I hope Franks doesn't have a hangover today." It was Frank Sinatra on the yacht with Mia Farrow. And again, I didn't realize until many years later when my father, when I was first married to my wife, my father had a couple of houses down in Acapulco and invited us down, and we went to a party. And actually, after the party, which was hosted by this woman who was a famous actress, Merle Oberon, we went out to a restaurant after with her too. And I just found out within the past year that Merle Oberon was one of the people on that yacht. So I never even realized that until just recently. So that's
and it's funny
quite
how
fascinating.
You cross paths sometimes. Yeah. It's always interesting how you cross paths. Well, first of all, before we really get going with the synchronicities, let's kind of discuss a little bit about like who you are. Who are you?
I'm still trying to figure that one out myself. Somewhere in here, we'll put it all together. But
maybe if you could just a quick synopsis of maybe where you're born and.
I was born in New York City, Manhattan, New York City, on September 22nd, 1944. And those that are into numerology, my birth time was 3:40 a.m. And there's some powerful numbers, 22 and 44 master numbers. And another synchronicity again. If you put Nathan Hale on Wikipedia, he was executed as a spy during the Revolutionary War by the British, and the date of his execution in New York was September 22nd, 1776. And I am self-proclaimed Hugh, the heartbeat of America, living in Ashland, Virginia, which bills itself the center of the universe. Ashland sits in Hanover County, where Patrick Henry grew up, who said, "Give me liberty or give me death." And I feel the same way all these years later as a Vietnam-era veteran. So I'm really looking to get this country back on track and have the people unite in peaceful, loving ways and be a beacon for the rest of the world with freedom, liberty, and justice for all. So I was born into very successful entrepreneurial type parents. My mother was actually a supermodel, and the hospital that I was born in was called Leroy Sanatorium, I think, and it was for the rich and famous back in the day. It's now an exclusive apartment building. But a few years after I was born, I think it was like 4 years later, and my mother worked on Broadway with Liz Weaver, who was the wife of Pat Weaver, who started NBC television. They're the parents of actress Sigourney Weaver. I played with Sigourney Weaver a couple of times as a kid, but she was born in that same hospital a few years later.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just so bizarre, the stuff I keep discovering, and I probably had all kinds of experiences growing up that I didn't pay much of attention to, but things really kicked in big time when I was living in Brewster, New York, and I had a UFO encounter when I was actually working as a contract security officer at Union Carbide's world headquarters, and I was actually, as a contract security officer, guarding the CEOs in the war room when the gas leak over in Bhopal, India happened. And that was quite something, too. They were getting bomb threats every 2 or 3 minutes, dumping 3,000 executives out of the building until they figured better security procedures and tape recordings and everything. So that was quite something. And while working at Union Carbide, I used to work 7 nights a week, shift 11 at night to 7 in the morning. I'm not sure exactly what year it was, but it was related to the Hudson Valley UFO sightings, which were quite famous back in the day. They don't get that much notoriety today that much, but I did have a triangular ship come right over the top of me over treetop level, and I just waved at it and sort of felt euphoric, but I don't know if that was the beginning of things to give me telepathic communications, because again, I'm not sure the exact time frame, but because I never came forward, I did go to a location where they had a lot of people that had seen it discussing it, but I never identified myself because I didn't want to put my job in jeopardy. So I'm coming forth now in all kinds of ways, and again, too, for my family, it was different times back then when my family was younger.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I have made peace with my family as far as what I'm doing now, and I stand in truth and light, and that's what I'm looking to show people, because we can't keep allowing global elites to manipulate us. It's time now to really come together in positive ways that are peaceful and stop the money pipelines that are going to these global elites through transparency, and also expose them through transparency and bring them to justice where it's needed. So anyway, around the time of the UFO encounter, I was functioning in my free time as an independent international marketing consultant, and came into a contact with a gentleman from Washington, D.C. that I eventually exposed for fraud via a front-page Wall Street Journal article, and that whole article actually triggered an investigation that eventually led to the resignation of the Speaker of the House, Jim Wright, the third highest office in the country. And the article beautifully describes back in 1983 how special interests and lobbyists have totally corrupted Washington. It was before Ross Perot talked about it back in the day. And just on 60 Minutes this past Sunday, they had a former DEA person talking about the way that the pharmaceutical companies are controlling things, bribing congressmen and senators and whatever to get what they want.
And that makes perfect sense, too, because really when you kind of see, let's say, for example, like before they actually take a new drug or whatever it is, technically it's supposed to take, like, I don't know what it is, 5 or 10 years of testing and whatever before it actually hits human trials and so forth. But really, when you take a look at, let's say, for example, like I know in the United States it's more so than anything. Like here in Canada, they don't do it as much. But let's say, for example, like when they advertise a drug, you know, like the list of the side effects are sometimes even worse than the actual benefits, you know.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, I have been prescribed the opioids and things for pain and stuff, and I currently take, because I'm in the Veterans Healthcare System since 2008, I had a near-death experience a month and a half after my wife passed in 2007, and that disabled me. I have COPD. I had the radioactive seed implants for prostate cancer, type 2 diabetes, herniated back disc, deteriorating discs, and osteoarthritis and stuff. But I take the prescriptions the way the doctors tell me to take them, but I have something that I tell people too is spirituality, spiritual self-healing. So I just say, God, you know, after my near death, I'm no longer here for me anymore. I'm here for mankind. So you just transmute everything.
and actually, now that you brought up this near-death experience sort of thing, now did you see anything interesting while you were in that? I guess you could say that near-death state, or did you?
Well, there again, that's an interesting question, because some people say that it's not considered a near-death until you go out of body and have some kind of tunnel experience or see the white light or whatever. But in my situation, on March 16th, 2007, I was in like an office park as the head of contract security in a patrol car. I couldn't breathe. I called my daughter, who said, Dad, call the police. And I immediately did that. They came and got me on oxygen and got me to the hospital. And I lost consciousness in the emergency room, which I have no recollection of. I was intubated, which a lot of people don't survive, where they stick the tube down you. And then I came to on Sunday and saw family at the foot of the bed. But just as I was coming to, I envisioned my head, excuse me, as a big black marble, and it exploded in a big whoosh into the universe in minute colorful particles, all different colors, reds, greens, browns, oranges, whites, blues, and what have you. And I didn't put too much weight on that until I eventually relocated from from New York down to Virginia. And then just prior to Easter, I was walking around for exercise, and something triggered me to look back over the time frame of my near-death experience. Friday afternoon, March 16th, and then coming to an ICU was sort of the time frame of Jesus being killed and then resurrecting. And I had mentioned that to some reverend type show. You're very special. I said, no, I'm not special at all, but because I had that experience, I do feel a special relationship with Jesus Christ. Now, Jesus never hit anybody over the head with a club and said, follow me. He knows you have free will, but that's where all of my resonance goes, and I even asked Jesus Christ to be my business partner, so now that makes me an unlimited well of creativity as well as a creative, intelligent force, and I always let it be in God's will and God's time and God's way, not mine. And that's where a lot of people have problems, and that's where a lot of religions, I say if all the religions on the planet functioned properly, nobody would be deprived clean water, food, and proper shelter. So they're good to bring people together in the community, but they're also third-party manipulators. So I tell people that just get out into nature. That's God's classroom. If you open up your heart to whoever you consider the Creator is, and I say you can't go wrong by asking Jesus to come into your heart. He'll transform your life for sure, but that's your choice. And he gave two basic instructions. If people would just do that, the whole world would change very quickly. He said, always put God first, and secondly, to love your neighbors yourself. So while the Bible and all these other stories are very interesting, everything can be manipulated, but you can't manipulate those two simple things that Jesus said. So that's where I just stay at that basic level and bring that into my heart, into my family, and into the community wherever I can, and let it be.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a wonderful thing, actually. Let's put it that way. And that's really what a lot of people like that are, I guess you could say, into the basis of all spirituality is, in essence, just kind of, between loving yourself, loving God, and so forth. And that's something that is shared by pretty much, like all religions.
Yes, love is God energy, and so that's.
The thing is right. It does get. Let's put it this way, like you said, it gets manipulated by those that are in charge of those various, the religious aspects of, whatever religion it may be. Like those that are in charge usually have sometimes can have let's put it this way, a motive behind some of their actions, and that's the sad part about it in many ways.
Well, you're exactly right. I was raised Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, and there are so many good people in these religions that get caught up in just the manipulation. But the thing is that Pope Francis has said, and this is documentable if people go on the internet, if you follow him on Twitter, you'll spend less time in purgatory. Now, purgatory is an invention of the Catholic Church, and they have all kinds of silly things that they keep people mind manipulated with. So I'm not into that.
No, and that's the thing. Like well, what is it? It's a control, right?
Right.
And that's really all it comes down to is who can control the masses.
That's why I say to people, look in the mirror and ask yourself who's controlling you. You have a higher self and you have God that you could go to.
Yes, and back in the day, because pretty much everyone went to a church of some sort, whatever religion it was, it doesn't make a difference, but everybody, the masses went to a church, and that's how the churches basically used to control people. But nowadays, because not so many people actually really go to church or whatever, but a lot of the masses, what do? Their church is the television or the media or whatever. So when you think about it, who controls a lot of the media nowadays? And that's the other interesting thing that goes along with it too. So I know some people would maybe label that as a conspiracy, but like for myself, for example, because I do work as a hypnotist, I do see, the way that things are worded, or I do see how things are portrayed or whatever. It's there to control, to sell, to do whatever, and in essence, that's kind of our church nowadays is the media.
You're exactly right. I said there's four main areas that are controlling us and manipulating us. It's mainstream media, religion, big government, and education. So we have to look at all those areas and start doing some of the things that I discuss on the website, rootingoutcorruption.weebly.com, is bringing that transparency and solutions People are too caught up in sound bites that may resonate with them instead of looking for the facts. And that's why I love to show out that Wall Street Journal article, because that gentleman who authored it, Jonathan Kwitny, Kwitny, people should Wikipedia his name, is very interesting, true journalist. And he was Jewish, yet had a close relationship with Pope John Paul II and authored a book about him. But he also had a TV show where he was exposing corruption on a daily basis almost.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of hidden things. There's a lot more goodness in the world than people realize. So that's where I love the statement that Gandhi made, and I like to put it out as much as possible. Be the change that you want to see in the world. Do you want to be the change of chaos? I don't think so. So why don't you go into your heart and practice what you'd love to see in your life, based on the law of attraction too? Put out that love and watch it come back to you.
That's right. No, and that's in essence, that's just good advice. Let's put it that way. And it doesn't take much. And it really doesn't. It could be something as simple as, like I said, just, and I've used this example before, is just, maybe just buying a coffee for the person behind you in the line or whatever, like it's something simple, something so, but those little bits add up, and it helps to change, I guess you could say, the consciousness of the world.
And that's what we're doing here with this show, and I thank you again for having me and for all the work that you're doing, because, too, I say to people that there's an online article, Hugh Traulsen, A Simple Man with a Big Message, and since I was in survival in the Air Force, I said, what if I was the greatest survivalist on the planet? And I killed everybody. What a great guy I am. And I'm the only one left, and all of a sudden an ET comes along, doesn't like the way I look, and takes me out. What did I really accomplish with my life? And here again, I say to other people, choose immediately if you could be one of these two things: an embittered paraplegic billionaire or somebody who's healthy and happy and had your basic needs met. Now, some people will just jump right for the billionaire, but I think after a couple of days, they deeply regret that choice. So stop blaming others, take personal responsibility for your life, and just look to see that you don't repeat the same mistakes, but find better ways to be here, because 100 years is like a blink of an eye in terms of eternity. We all came from spirit. Even an atheist can't deny that. We're going to go back into spirit. The material goods have absolutely no use or value in the spiritual realm. So we're here for a purpose, and I believe it's to learn the lesson my wife so beautifully taught me, the lesson of unconditional love. As we learn it, we're supposed to be a blessing to others, especially those who can't help themselves. So that's the track I'm taking for all the things that I'm working on, and also empowering women and indigenous people in the process, because they have what we need to manifest in the present for a better future.
Very, very true. And now, one of your websites, if anybody's interested in taking a look, is one of them is called Rooting Out Corruption. And that's all one word, .weebly.com. And on there, you will find some interesting information about all the things that that Hugh is a part of and has been a part of, I guess you could say. It's a wealth of information. I don't even think I went through all of it yet. Let's put it that way, because there's so much going on there. Now, before we get a little bit further here, I did say I was going to take a couple of calls, so I will take one for right now. Okay, just so I don't know if we have anybody online or not yet. I don't think we do, or maybe we don't. Oh, we have one caller. Okay, so caller 805. That would be great. Please and thank you.
Hi, I'm enjoying this interview. It's very interesting. Find it very helpful. My name is Donna. Hi, Dennis. Hello to both of you.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question. I can see and hear the spirits. I've been sensitive my whole life to that.
Okay.
I did pick up my mom coming through, and it was her voice in my head, and I know it was her because I know her voice and I feel her, and she doesn't come that often. I can't make them come, but when they do, they do. And she said I was going to get rewarded for something. And I wanted to know, were you picking up on anything that I don't understand what she meant by that?
You said that she was going to be rewarded for something?
No, she said, that I was going to be rewarded.
Oh, I see. Okay. Basically, I'm just going to try to tune into your mom here a little bit.
Okay.
Now, as I'm kind of tuning in, though, what I am kind of getting those is that, have you been working on your development?
Oh, yeah, for a long time. And I meditate every day for 40 minutes.
Okay,
40 minutes I go to prayer and also the quietness, yes.
Good, because what I'm actually kind of getting from her actually is that for you to actually start doing a little bit of this work, even if it's part-time or whatever for now, that would be actually a fantastic thing. Now, the thing is, though, is that the reward or whatever that you're going to get out of doing this is not just yes, there's a little bit of money involved, I guess you could say, which is always kind of nice, and there does have to be a little bit of an energy exchange, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But the reward that I'm kind of feeling here is more of a spiritual reward, okay? So in other words, with you actually helping others, there's going to be some of, I guess you could say, a little bit of the you're actually going to kind of make connections with the other people that you're feeling or that you're connecting to, and those people that you're going to be connecting to, they will in turn kind of reflect back to you some of the things that you need for your own personal growth and spiritual growth as well. So that's kind of more of the reward, I think, more so than anything. Okay. And there's also, I don't know why, but I'm getting another male around you as well for some sort of reason.
My nephew is, yeah.
Okay, because there's going to be something there that's that you're going to make a connection to, and it just feels like you're going to actually, because yes, it does feel like somebody that's younger. Interesting, because I don't know why I'm getting this, but I do feel as if there's, I almost want to say there's almost the first thing that popped into my head was apology for some sort of reason, and I don't know why I wanted to say that, but it's almost as if there's going to be something there that needs to be expressed, just something like that, sort of thing. But it's really going to lift a weight off of you more so than anything. I don't know why I'm getting that, though. That's kind of a weird thing. But anyway, I'll leave that anyway. But like I said, I do feel, though, that the spiritual reward is going to be very, like I said, it's going to reflect within you. And like I said, there's going to be a large weight that's going to be lifted off of you in many ways. Okay?
Okay. Can I just ask you one more thing, Dennis? Do you see someone coming in for me, because I haven't had a companion, a male love, relationship in about years.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe okay.
Too long.
Let me have a look here at that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. There does. Like I said, I do feel that there is somebody coming here for you. There's still, well, actually, even when I do a few of the cards sort of thing, I am kind of getting that there is a very strong connection that you're actually going to make with somebody here. I do want to say, actually, over the next, it feels like within 6 months, okay?
Okay.
But I do feel, though, that with you opening up, doing a little bit more of this work, like as a medium or whatever, that's going to, you're going to be creating connections. And this is a possibility. That's where you're going to actually meet somebody here. So keep that in mind, okay? But make certain that you're open to it as well.
Right.
Okay, because I'm kind of getting to is that it's time for you now to kind of release some of those old doubts and fears and stuff like that. that were going on there. Like, not everybody is kind of like from the past sort of thing, you know what I mean? So if you release that, that will in turn help you to be open more to other people, I guess you could say, and new relationships. Okay.
Very nice. Okay. Well, thank you. I so appreciate this. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. You have yourself a great week.
You have a nice evening.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay. So, anyway, Hugh, if you're still there, hopefully you were.
Yes, I'd love to just give a little comment on Donna's call, too. It might be helpful for her. Number one, the law of attraction is simple and basic. Just go into gratitude, and if it's monetary that you're looking for, don't look for that so much as just being grateful. Like, as an example, I went to the supermarket recently and spent so much, and it looked a little over, but then through my customer card, it brought it down to exactly what I needed and left me with $1. And I said, well, this is wonderful. And I put the $1 in for a scratch-off lottery ticket, and that paid for the whole grocery bill that I had. So that's the law of attraction at work through gratitude. So that's a big, big area to always stay in. And if there's something negative, just ask God to help you through it, and just always let go and let God. The other thing is related to finding a companion. I don't know how you're circulating to do that, but go to places that you really enjoy going to. And that, again, will put out the right kind of vibe because you like being where you are, and the right kind of person hopefully will come along and introduce himself to you. So good luck with all of that.
Yeah, no, that's very good advice there, Hugh. That's actually spot on as far as I'm concerned, so that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's funny that you mentioned about the synchronicities and stuff like that as well, because of the fact that, let me put it to you this way, even today, for example, like, I'm always a firm believer that if a person sees dimes or something like that, like on the road, you know, like, or a dime just kind of pops up, it usually, like, from what I've been told and from what I've kind of witnessed too, is that it actually means that there's good luck coming to you and so forth. So it's funny because even today, just as I went out for an afternoon walk in the rain here, more so than anything, but it was kind of misty more than anything. But what did I see as soon as I walked out was basically a dime on the ground sort of thing. So, you know, that's kind of the universe telling me too that, hey, you know what, everything is going to be all right and everything's going to be in line with you sort of thing. So, and that kind of goes in line with your synchronicities, I guess you could say.
Well, again, too, nature, feathers are another thing that when you see interesting. And I say nature's God's classroom. Just get out in it. Will lower your stress level and heighten your awareness. And I have a couple of brief examples. I walk around my senior independent apartment building for exercise, and a few years back when I finish, I always sit down and just resonate with nature, looking at the beautiful flowers, the trees, listening to the birds, the clouds in the sky, not the chemtrails, but and then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, a butterfly came and landed a few feet away from me. It was sort of orange and black with white markings. I guess it was a monarch. And it stayed for about 20 minutes, periodically opening and closing its wings, and eventually left its wings. Well, it moved about another 3 feet and landed and left its wings open. And I started getting a message that when life is tough, we might close up our wings or go into a shell. But when we let go and let God, like the butterfly just opening up and leaving its wings open, that's when the miracles happen. So when I got up to walk away, I noticed my Bermuda shorts had markings the same colors as the butterfly, with the orange and browns and whites and what have you. And then another time I was standing in a patch of buttercups barefoot. And that's another thing people should really take a look at. It's indigenous teachings too, that and there is a website that sells products, earthing.com, but just getting barefoot is being in touch with Mother Earth, and it will actually draw inflammation out of the body. So I was standing amongst these beautiful patch of buttercups, and then I looked directly down at my feet and noticed a tiny little maroon flower with 3 leaves, and I said, wow, that's interesting. It's not really taking away from the beauty of all the buttercups, it's actually enhancing it. And as soon as I came to that realization, I noticed that my T-shirt was maroon, the same color as that flower. So that's, again, when I walk, birds will stay a few feet away from me instead of flying away. And I don't stop to talk to them, but they're not afraid of me.
Oh, very nice. That's, you know, and that's the thing there that, you know, like even in nature and so forth, like, and even myself too, like, you know, I was, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before or not, like during our sort of our pre-interview or not, but about me, like I went out for a walk in by a park over here in the city.
Yes.
And for some sort of reason, I just felt as if I had to take a different direction. And I was actually kind of putting it out there beforehand, too, that, you know, like, okay, universe, show me that I'm on the right path sort of thing. And so I went for my walk, and I kind of, let's go down this path. And then what did I see? I saw basically 5 deer. And they allowed me to come within 10 feet of them, you know, sort of thing, which is, you know, but I knew I shouldn't go any closer because I didn't want to spook them either or anything like that. But it was such a lovely experience to be that close to them and within the city limits to boot, you know, so that's my little synchronicity there, too. And that's the thing here too, you know, like that's the wonderful thing about synchronicities. They're there to give us, I guess you could say, that confirmation that sometimes we're on the right path, you know, and or whatever, you know, and that's a nice thing, you know. Like, yeah,
I'd like to throw one out real quick, because you have a day next month that is actually a national day that was proclaimed National Philanthropy Day. I think it started in 2013 in Canada. But the origin of the day was in 1986. If you Wikipedia National Philanthropy Day, President Ronald Reagan made the day November 15th, 1986 National Philanthropy Day, and that's the day it's celebrated in Canada every year, November 15th. And I have a poem in the President Ronald Reagan Library. There was a day he proclaimed in 1983, which is National Care and Share Day. And I have a poem titled Caring, Sharing. It's only 3 lines long. It reads, if you dare to care, then share. If you share, pay heed. God will reward every good deed. It sort of sums up what life should be all about. So I find all these synchronicities still popping up in so many different powerful ways. On the rootingoutcorruption.weebly.com site, there's a page where it says Trump and Traulsen. I actually share common background with President Trump, but I'm not into the ego like he is. And also on that page is mentioned Bill O'Reilly. What's going on there now?
Why? What was going on with, like, I'm sorry.
It's all these big payoffs for the sexual harassment.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, so there's information where my mother actually was asked and did pose gratis the pictures as the Blessed Mother in Our Lady Seat of Wisdom Chapel at Marist College. And if you Wikipedia Bill O'Reilly, he went to Marist College, and I called to verify my mother's pictures were still in good condition when he was a student there. So in essence, I say every time he went into the chapel to pray, my mother was looking down on him. I hope it might give him some humility. Obviously it hasn't, but maybe someday.
Well, let's put it this way. Sometimes like one thing or another, either we have the humility or we'll be given the humility, whether we want it to or not, sort of thing. And hopefully he'll learn that lesson, and that's the thing.
Well, hopefully before he goes back into spirit, because again, I feel that we're fully accountable for everything we do here, and I know people may disagree with that, but we have to be here for a reason.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that we do take, I guess you could say, much of our experiences and much of our knowledge, I guess you could say, with us, because it's an energetic thing, and that's like, as I was saying about those colors around you, well, that's that energy that surrounds you, and in a lot of ways we take that energy with us, like when we pass on, because let's put it this way, energy can't be destroyed or created, it can only be transformed. So let's put it this way, that's all we can do is just take those memories with us.
And here again too, it's in the life lessons that we have to learn forgiveness is a big thing as a part of this life lessons. I say forgiveness, love, and prayer is what life is really all about. And forgiving, we have to forgive ourselves too for the role that we may have played that triggered somebody or caused a problem, or understanding that we may have done things in our own past that were far worse than we're accusing somebody else of doing to us.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I was just kind of curious if there's any other interesting you mentioned about this whole UFO thing, as it went over the treetops around you. Like, that's an interesting sort of experience that, let's put it this way, not too many people have.
Well, as more and more, I guess, if you really are into that, and since you mentioned it, there's a gentleman in Canada who I've reached out to. He's never come back to me, but he's got a very interesting site. It's Grant Cameron. His site is presidentialufo.com. Very interesting to go over. And I want to, again, go back to rootingoutcorruption.weebly.com. There's a page, media review, and on that page, you'll see a couple of book jackets, and one was titled The KGB, The Eyes of Russia, written by Harry Rositsky, who was a high-level CIA operative, and there's a YouTube interview on there from Paul Kimball, a filmmaker in Nova Scotia, talking to Greg Bishop about who Harry Rositsky was. Now, I actually spoke with Harry Rositsky after reading his book in the early 80s. It was helpful to me in exposing this guy in the Wall Street Journal, Dr. Paul Sines. And he had retired from the CIA when I spoke with him and was on a gentleman's horse farm in Northern Virginia, and told me he was studying religion, theology, and spirituality. Funny how they do that when they retire from the CIA. I guess it's getting prepared for going back into spirit. But anyway, I lost track of him over the years. In 2008, something triggered me to see if he was still alive, and I found that he had passed. When I read his obituary, 4 synchronicities jumped right out at me. His name was Harry. My father's name was Harry. His wife's name was Barbara Helen. My mother-in-law's name was Helen. His daughter's name was Anne Elizabeth Hunt. My wife's name was Anne Elizabeth. My mother's maiden name was Hunt. Now, 4 synchronicities in one little obituary is pretty bizarre, but high-level CIA, that's off the charts. And Harry Rositsky was supposedly involved a lot with the UFO stuff, too, as you'll be able to hear from the interview.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's now in regards to the actual experience, though, like how did it kind of make you feel afterwards? Like when you
again, I didn't put too much weight on it. I felt euphoric, but the area that I was in Brewster, New York, had a lot of paranormal activity, and I mentioned to you, I don't know if you had a chance to go on to that show. It's a blog talk show with Leslie Mitchell Clark, who's a hypnotherapist in the Toronto area, and she has a blog talk show called Contact, and there was a gentleman, Harold Walter Eglin, who came on as a guest, and he was talking about a lot of the paranormal stuff going on, and having encountered a whole big pack or group of raccoons. And I did not realize. I called into the show and said, wow, because I had a similar encounter on Union Carbide's property where I was patrolling on motor patrol, and about 50 raccoons in a pack I encountered and supposedly that's something shape-shifting by ETs. I never even realized that.
And that's actually an interesting point, too, because some of the, let's say, for example, like, what's her name? Dolores Cannon, actually.
Right, she passed, right.
Exactly, and she's got a lot of, or she did a lot of, I guess you could say, past life, or I guess you could say regressions on people in regards to finding out, in regards to like these lost moments of time over the course of a person's life. And
right.
As she did that, though, like it was interesting because she and these are people like saying their experiences, and they're very similar actually to what you're actually saying is that these ETs, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them, yes, they will shift or shapeshift or give us the impression that they're something other than their true form, I guess you could say. So whether it be animals or raccoons or even people or whatever, that does actually, and it just seems consistent.
Not only that, I think they're interdimensional too. That's why you can never catch some of the UFOs and Bigfoot. They just shift into a different dimension.
Yeah, and that's not a surprise there. Let's put it that way, because
right.
When you think about it in many ways, like they're probably much more advanced in regards to their thinking or in regard to their, they've probably been around for maybe 1 million longer years, than what we have been on this earth.
Well, there again, with my spirituality, I say that they were created by the creator of all, just like me, and even if they're 1,000 years old or whatever, they're going to go back into spirit and be accountable too. I don't chase the UFOs, and I say to people, if you do, it may not be a pleasant encounter when you catch up with them, because it's good and bad and everything, so be careful what you wish for or encounter. But if they want to come forth with good stuff, I'm all for it, and we just want to be in peace. That's the simple, basic things people are focusing on, because they get caught up again with sound bites and whatever sounds good to them. They just jump on it and take anybody on to argue with. But I have a friend and mentor who I mentioned, Dr. Ed Maloney, who told me that nobody wins an argument. Now, he is a true warrior who was a former Special Ops Green Beret captain that did the suicide missions behind the enemy lines in Vietnam. He also was national martial arts champion at age 13, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of what he's all about. But when he said nobody ever wins an argument, he's 100% right.
And that's very true.
Right.
And that is very true. And I think that if anything, like out of any whatever, if you want to call it an argument, if you want to call it whatever, I think the biggest thing is that if you can actually see, another person's point of view, and even if you don't agree with it, that's okay, as long as you can actually see their point of view.
That's what we have to do right now. That's the important thing, for just, again, being the person that wants to bring unconditional love into your heart and getting into your community, even if you're not in a group or partaking in a meetup group, just being friendly wherever you go and just watching how things shift in that regard. I mean, these people that are making low wages, that are servicing you at gas stations and grocery stores or whatever, I mean, if you're above them in the scheme of things with making more money or whatever, there's nothing to say that couldn't change and you could be them someday. So, I mean, I was born into wealth. It wasn't my money, but even though my father left millions, he left bulk of it to his widow, and she was helping me for a while and just cut me off. But with no explanation, I wrote back to her, and she wouldn't, absolutely no contact. So that's a choice she made, but that's the karma she takes on too, if that's how she wants to handle it. But you can't take it with you. So here I am scraping by on Social Security, and again, I'm to the point, that's why I put that out there. If I was a billionaire tomorrow, it's not going to change my life that much. I can only eat one steak at a time, too. And how many estates do these billionaires need around the world? I mean, if they just had one nice place and were transparent with everything they're doing, and they could build some kind of 10-star resorts all around the planet that these people could go to be really enjoying a vacation and acknowledged for who they are, for all the good that they're doing. That's what I'd like to see for the future for these people that have all this money that say they're doing such great things, but are they really behind the scenes? Not necessarily.
That's very true. And let's put it this way, like, it doesn't make a difference how much money you have, whether you have millions or if you have $10 in your pocket or whatever. The thing is, really what it comes down to is you're still a human. You know, you're still
exactly.
a human being, and you still have to live life a certain, maybe a certain way, and it's up to us that how we want to do it. But the thing is, though, is that, if you live, like with respect to other people, I don't think you'll ever go wrong, and that's the thing there.
Exactly right. So hopefully, instead of just talking about it, maybe through this show or just more and more people becoming aware that they can be the change and do something good to, like my wife, she was such a blessing to me. I never even realized how great a teacher she was until after she passed and I went through my near-death experience and had time on my hands to look back over my life. And I'm still fascinated. I keep saying to myself, who is this guy? Meaning me, with all the stuff that... But again, I say I'm like a way shower and a phoenix rising, and I don't have the fear. But again, it's not all about me. It's about me showing you how my faith has seen me through all these extraordinary experiences. Even being back in the 80s, too, back in Brewster when all this stuff was going on, I was functioning as an independent international marketing consultant, and something went awry internationally where I had somebody falsely accusing me of being involved in an assassination plot against President Reagan. I was interviewed by a Secret Service agent. It was total BS. And here yet I have my poem in the President Ronald Reagan Library, too. So all this stuff is archived somewhere. I just hope that someday somebody will take the right kind of interest to do a documentary, an investigation on all the things I've been through.
Yeah, and that's the thing, but the interesting thing, though, and that's what let's put it this way, that I've seen or like, it seems like your story is actually quite consistent with not just, let's say, for example, like with a few others, sort of thing, like where things get hidden or things get covered up or whatever, just because they're trying to protect something.
Well, they know we were talking about energy before, they know how to manipulate the energies. So that's why they bombard you with mainstream media. It's all about fear and begging for anything you can get for the government. No. We have to keep our freedoms open, and that's where I say, too, that any leader of a country, including the United States, and I have offered to assist President Trump, but there's absolutely no response. He knows who I am. I've written to him over the years, too, but they don't want what I have to bring forth, and that's to unite and empower the masses. They want to control the masses. That's a totally different ballgame. That's why the mainstream media, these presidents that we think are presidents, are actually controlled by global elites who are behind the mainstream media controlling that. And it's so interesting because I came across somebody else where you said the consistency. He said there was a big shift back around 1982, 1983. That Wall Street Journal article was 1983. So the story came out so powerfully that they couldn't cover things up, and the lies are so beautifully brought out in the article. So they want everything to be in total chaos and disarray. That's that game that they have, and I have said it too, that I think part of the agenda is they already do it with animals to put a computer chip in you. Well, that makes you somebody else's robot if you don't know what's on that chip. So they'll have to get me while I'm sleeping for that one. But again, I ask God for divine protection and let His will be done. And you can put your chemtrails in the up in the sky, but that's not going to do me in. God will call me home when my mission is finished, not you, but you will be accountable for what we're doing to harm others. So the people I don't know if you're familiar with the UN Agenda 21. I think Henry Kissinger and a bunch of other people figured out ways to depopulate the planet. They want to bring it back down to about 50 million or 500 million on the planet from the almost 9 billion that we have. So I say, wow, all the work that went into that is absolutely wonderful. Why don't you guys get the hell off the planet as way showers and leave the rest of us alone?
That's right.
And we'll figure it out.
That's about it, too. Anyway, Hugh, I just want to thank you very much for joining me tonight. We're pretty much out of time now. But once again, blessings to you for all that you do and for all that information and for all that, all the stuff that you've been doing since 1944 or 48 or whatever it is, sort of thing. So,
well, it's an absolute delight. I'm sorry that everything goes so fast, but that's another part of the experiences that we're having. So again, hurry up and slow down is an old military expression. If you can't do anything else, these people would say they're spiritual, but they don't know what to do. You can say a prayer that will help raise the consciousness globally, and God will put the ego in check where it needs to be. So Dennis, thank you so much again, and God bless you for the work that you're doing to help others.
We try. That's very good. Thank you very much again, Hugh. And for all of you out there, I hope to see you again next week on Monday, whatever day that will be. And if you're out trick-or-treating and Halloweening, well, have fun. And whatever you do, just don't drink and drive if you are going on your Halloween party or whatever. So aside from that, I wish you all the best in regards to the week. And I'll catch you again next week. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Napa know-how. A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how. Napa know-how.